We do want to bring in Deputy Spokesperson at the U.S. State Department, Vedant Patel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Can you share with us, when do you think Paul Whelan will ultimately be released?
I'm not going to prescribe a timeline on it, of course, but this is something that the department and the entire administration is going to continue to work towards tirelessly. I will note that, Secretary Blinken spoke to this earlier in the week. We, of course, it was our strongest desire to have Paul on the plane back with Brittney on his way back to the United States. But due to the sham espionage charges and the way that Russia has categorized his case, that was not possible. But this is something that we're going to continue to work towards and engage on because there is no greater priority for the State Department than ensuring the safety and security of Americans who are being wrongfully detained or held hostage and ensuring that they can get home safely.
I appreciate that. And we understand that Russia was interested in Vadim Krasikov. He was an assassin held by German authorities still currently. Germany was not willing to give him up. So what leverage does the U.S. still have to get Whelan home now that Victor Bout has been traded?
I'm just not going to get into internal diplomatic engagements on how these talks could potentially go forward. But what I will say is that this is something that across the entire administration we will continue to work on. You saw the president speak to this. You saw the Secretary of State speak to this, State Department, as well as the White House press secretary. We have not forgotten about Paul, and we're going to continue to fight every day to ensure that he can get home safely to his loved ones.
I hear you. Can you help shed light on us, for us rather, than on Mark Fogel, the American teacher who was held in Russia for trying to bring medical marijuana into the country? His charges sound quite similar to Brittney Griner's. He was not given the State Department classification of wrongly detained. Why is that?
The specific designation of a wrongful detention, that is a process that is ongoing, and that's I don't have any specific updates to provide, but that work continues. And I believe you've seen that our nominee to be our ambassador in Russia has called on the release of Mark under humanitarian grounds, but on a specific wrongful detention designation, that process is ongoing. But what I will say is, to any American who is detained abroad, what we continue to raise consistently, whether it be with the Russian Federation or any other state, is that our American citizens get constant and consistent access to consular services, and that's something that we have made quite clear in these cases as well.
Yeah, and we've heard directly from his sister and what a frustrating experience that has been. Are there any plans to bring him home that you can share with us?
Again, the specific wrongful detention designation, that is a process that is ongoing, and I'm just not at a place to get into the specifics around these right now.
I understand. Now, Victor Bout has been in prison in the U.S. for 15 years. His nickname, of course, famously the Merchant of Death. What is the concern of what he's capable of now that he is free and back in Russia?
What this is about is our ability to bring home an American citizen who was being wrongfully detained, who had to endure some horrific experiences. And ultimately, this administration and President Biden made a difficult decision, but one that resulted in an American citizen who is now home, back on U.S. soil, and is reunited with her loved ones.
Certainly. And I think all of us are so glad and grateful, and I know how difficult these negotiations, how delicate they were. Is there concern that after his experience and his time served in the U.S., he will seek revenge?
I'm just not going to play into hypotheticals, but what I will say is that Mr. Bout had been in American custody for nearly 12 years. He was set to be released in 2029. And so ultimately this was a call. It became very clear that as it related to Brittney's release, he was the only one that the Russian Federation was interested in. And so the administration and President Biden made a difficult decision, but it was one that resulted in Brittney being back home, back with her wife, back on American soil, and back reunited with her loved ones.
All right, Vedant Patel, I certainly appreciate your time and you sharing some insight and context with us. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.